Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission's regular meeting on Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Jim, would you call roll, please?
Yes, I will, as soon as I find the sheet. Okay. Lauren?
Present.
Chris?
Here.
Lester?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Rich? I think
I'm here
Yep, but via Zoom.
via Zoom.
I'm here, and Millie.
Here.
Okay, first item on the agenda today is a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes for the September 27th meeting. There was one addition that I feel we need to add to the minutes, and that was just the input from Beth Katchmeyer and comments from the audience. She had mentioned about extending the historic district further to the east on Main Street. And I just thought that was some good input that I think we should at least get in the minutes and keep in mind when we talk about our historic downtown. She had mentioned the original high school and its remodel, as well as some other structures that have been worked on a little bit further east. So I just wanted to include that in the minutes if we
Actually,
could.
those are there on the
Are
last
they?
page.
On the last page? I didn't see that.
8B. Beth Ketchmar brought
that-
attention
I
to the
missed it.
recent removal of the facade on the Sherwin-Williams building and the restoration of the former high school, now middle school, building on Main Street.
I
She
guess I missed
suggested
it under
extending the
announcements.
downtown historic district to include these historic structures.
I'm glad you got that, Jim. Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else we'd like to add or before we vote on approval of the minutes? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes from the September 27th meeting along with the meeting agenda for this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And go ahead and call a roll, Jim.
Lauren?
Approve.
Chris?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim? Yes. Millie?
Yes.
Okay, so the first item on today's agenda is the,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think we
Yes.
may need to add one item to today's agenda, call to the public. I think that got inadvertently omitted.
input from the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we already voted on it, but I think we can make that adjustment.
So if you want to, you can have the original motion amended by the motion in the second if you want.
Okay, would you like to make a motion on that?
I'll amend my first motion to add to the agenda public comments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And we'll take another vote.
Okay. Lauren?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Jim? Yes. And Millie?
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move on to the first item on the agenda is the CLG annual report. Lisa?
I've been working on the report that we are required to submit to the State Historic Preservation Office for the RCLG. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we had correctly on the report before I file it is I marked down how many training sessions either the chair and or staff have completed this last year. And I know I'm aware of the chairman going to the Savings Places Conference, as well as Jim attending the Historic Preservation Workshop on the Road in July, I believe. Was there anyone else on the commission who either attended in person or even a training webinar online that I need to make note of in the report.
I did one online, but I'd have to go back and get the title of it.
Okay, yes, please email me that information as soon as possible so I can get that on there. The other thing I wanted to mention is last meeting, we did have an evaluation of our CLG by Dr. Lindsay Flewelling. That following day, she called, or I should say week, she called and we did a one-on-one interview for 30 minutes about our CLG, and it looks like we are in compliance.
Good.
So just wanted to let you know that. And that will happen again in another few years, every 3 years.
And your deadline on that annual report is soon, I take it?
Yes, November 1st,
Well, that is very soon.
yes.
Anything else on that topic? Okay, and then I think we wanted to have some discussion on the 2024 sub-grant with the CLG. Did the subcommittee meet at all on that topic, or other than what we discussed?
I attended an online workshop on the upcoming grant, learning about what projects are eligible for grant funding through the CLG. There are quite a few, and I think I mentioned last time the potential for doing more surveys within the community, resurveying of downtown. I also sent out examples of survey plans for the minutes and the agenda for this meeting. I hope you got a chance to look some of those over. I need some guidance on what you feel we should be applying for within this grant opportunity. The draft for the grant is due December 11th, and the final application is due January, let me look, make sure I get 16th. Yep.
Anyone have a chance to review some of the samples that she provided to us?
I spent a little bit of time reviewing the surveys. The Fort Morgan survey was nice. It seemed to have some good information and definitions of different aspects of it. One of the main parts was the types of surveys. And I think that's something we have to look at. I know we talked about expanding our downtown and possibly looking at a neighborhood survey. And within the Fort Morgan survey, they define 3 types of surveys, one being a windshield survey or limited reconnaissance, a reconnaissance survey, and an intensive survey. And as they get more intensive, they become more expensive. And then also what would apply best to what we're looking to do. Let's see, I mainly looked at the Fort Morgan and Salida, and both of those were more windshield surveys to kind of get their bearings on what has been done before, what has changed, what can be added to. I kind of feel that that's something that would be good for downtown and possibly the neighborhoods. But I don't know what else, everyone else's opinion on, do we need a more intensive survey at this point? Or do we want to start with the smaller level?
I think it's a decision we need to make soon, because December 11th is the deadline, and we won't have a meeting before that date, so may have the November meeting, but that really puts you on a tight squeeze. What's everyone's feelings on that?
I looked at a couple. I looked at the Fort Morgan as well as the Salida. I think that developing a plan for the plan might be a good idea. To look at the downtown plan that we need to update, that Front Range Associates did in 2004. So that definitely needs to be updated and expanded if we choose to. As we've discussed, residential neighborhoods are certainly deserving of some attention. Lauren brought up the irrigation system. And we talked about that a little last time. And there are other elements of historic preservation planning that we should consider as well, including natural landscape, such as Skyline Drive and Garden Park. Those are distinctive features here and worthy of preservation. Fortunately, they're not threatened by development, but you never know. So I think it would be worth considering doing a overview that would give us a sense of what our priorities are, what plans are needed, and how they fit together. And I'm not sure if it would be too involved, but it might be worth considering to invite some collaboration. The County Historic Preservation Commission, the BLM, the Historical Society, all might be, and other groups, Western Fremont, Florence, the coal camps, Gold Belt. You know, there might be potential collaborators that would fit in very nicely with this and help us with the scope. But obviously that's going to take a little time to develop. I think that we might begin looking at a very preliminary scope of work that would outline potential elements for the plan. And at some point, we could send out a request for qualifications to identify planning consultants that might be, or historic preservation consultants that might be interested in and have background to work in our area. One of the other factors I think we need to consider in retaining a consultant would be their ability to network with the state agencies. We're not as networked in as we could be, and certainly I think we would want to consider any consultants networking credentials as well as their professional qualifications. I think we also want to look at the economic impact of historic preservation planning, and that could be included as an item we would want considered, as well as implementation steps. So I think maybe we might benefit from having a subcommittee that could recommend, review this and recommend to the group at our next meeting the approach we might consider. So that would be my thought on it.
Well, my thoughts won't be nearly as comprehensive, but those are all really good things to think about as we move forward in this process. Certainly there are levels of detail. My thought goes back to a couple of different things. The last time you mentioned, Lisa, that there were some buildings on Main Street that have become significant as of late and could use a more detailed review and inclusion in our downtown historic plan. I think that also ties into some of the economic programs that we have in terms of development on Main Street and our continued grant funding and grant opportunities for Main Street and its buildings and the inhabitants. So I'm in favor of making sure that we do take a look at Main Street in terms of targeting individual properties that need to be included now. So that would be my first suggestion. My second one is, I've been a cheerleader of the mapping process that we have ongoing now for the last couple of years as we take a comprehensive look at the way the city has developed over time, including not only its business interests and even some of the smaller cities that have lost incorporation and become enveloped by Canyon, and how they develop, but the residential districts again around them and the agricultural pieces that have been included over time. So I wonder if one of these windshield surveys would give us the opportunity to combine both that mapping effort and a windshield survey of those areas. And I say that with the notion that it gives, it outlays future opportunities for future commissions. So as these funding opportunities, these grant opportunities come before not only this commission, but future commissions, they can look at those plans that have been skimmed and are filed and need detail, so that we can continue to add detail, so that there's some areas of our review that are very intensive and some that are very light but need more detail in the future. So that would be my comment.
So I read the things that Lisa sent to us, and being new to this, I had just an overall question. What, if someone, can we discuss things at this setting here, or is it more?
I think it's fine too, but I think we're going to appoint a committee to
Okay.
look at it further and make some decisions in advance of the next meeting, or at least a recommendation to where Lisa can move forward with this. So we're open for input now, though, but we'll
I
probably.
think the overall question I had is, what is the purpose of these plans? What does it do long-term for historic preservation in Canyon City?
I think Lisa can answer that the best.
So it's actually, the plans are outlining priorities of what this committee, the community, would like to see us do in preserving our resources that reflect a wide range, not just community, downtown, commercial buildings, but the neighborhoods, that ensuring that they'll be there for the next generation. That there is an economic component to that. There's outreach component to that, making sure people are aware of if they do have their property as a contributing building, they have access to tax credits for projects that follow the Department of Interior guidelines for historic preservation and restoration. So there's, one of the reasons of having a plan is to guide not only the commission, but city council in the future, what we value for our community.
So at some point, the content of the plan gets to the city council level, and if they choose to implement some or all of it, there are certain properties that become included that are eligible then for some kind of tax credits for renovation?
So if we do go forward with a formal survey and they decide to do, in the case of resurveying the downtown historic district, the properties that were not necessarily contributing the last time become contributing now would be eligible for tax credits. But that has to go through that process to determine that.
Okay.
In the case of doing windshield surveys or creating a survey plan, it would be listing areas that the commission and city council have not really looked at before for preserving historical resources in the community.
So just to ask one more question about this, we have a 20-year-old plan, and I'm curious, over the last 20 years, what has the city council done with that plan? Are there some examples of what they've done with it to improve historic properties in town?
So for the downtown historic district, one of the things that has happened is we became a CLG, Certified Local Government. Becoming that has made those properties that are currently listed, either on the local, state, or national, or contributing to the downtown historic district, now eligible for those tax credits, whereas before they were not.
Okay, and have we received any tax credits through this process in the last 5-10 years?
I know of at least 2 properties that are doing projects or have done projects with tax credits.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, so there's potential again for more, much more.
Do we have any other input?
Just one. The word plan and the word survey are 2 different putty cats. A plan indicates you have an idea or a goal for a future. You've got a context. But on a survey, you've sort of missed the context or clusters. We find clusters of agricultural. We find clusters of immigration. We find clusters of agricultural buildings. And these do not drop into your political or maps. Your neighborhoods are reflecting different aspects that you haven't built into your resource base. Perhaps looking at clustering of ethnicity, migration. They are not staying within your wards, and they're not staying within your plats. But that is a survey, not a plan. That's a sort of gray area. If you could set up a matrix that you know, is this what has been? Is this something that we have not examined because it had been not politically correct, such as the Depression? What were the impacts on Florence and Canyon City in the Depression? What about the termination of transportation lines? These things are built into your history as resource, but they don't fit into plan. That's so if you can some sort of put a edge or way of dealing with that, what has been and what you want are 2 different areas of examination. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's good input. And with that being said, I think, is there anyone else who'd like to add anything? Amy?
Thank you
Thanks for
so
joining
much.
us today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always such a pleasure to be here. I wanted to just follow up on 2 comments that were made. Thank you so much for those questions, Lauren, and for those excellent responses, Lisa. That was really helpful. I would just, I guess, encourage from a city council perspective, the more specific that the plan can be in terms of actionable recommendations that you would want city council to take. I mean, I think the more likely it is that those would actually be followed up on and done. Because I think that there is somewhat of a disconnect sometimes between plans that are done and then those tangible steps forward and those tangible progress. So as you're thinking about how to craft the language that would go towards that potential subgrant, if there can be a request for like what specific steps should we do or should we take to either add additional buildings, to be contributing buildings, or other things that have to do with zoning or planning that the city should take a look at, I think that could be potentially very useful. The other thing I wanted to follow up on was just a comment that Lester had made about some of the grants that the city has. We do grants through the Urban Renewal Authority that are targeted specifically in the Central Business District, which obviously has a great deal of overlap with the Historic District, specifically for facades. So I think it would be interesting as we're looking at a potential windshield survey to maybe identify some of the buildings that could could potentially be brought back to some of their former glory and specifically do targeted outreach to ensure that the owners are aware that these facade grants are available. And we could even potentially look at other urban renewal authority type grants that could be out there that are specifically targeting historic preservation issues within the urban renewal authority boundaries. So just wanted to throw those two ideas out there as well, because I think you make a really great point, Lester, in terms of trying to connect what the city's already doing in other aspects to what some of our goals are when it comes to historic preservation. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. And then with that being said, I think we need to put together a committee to review this and make some recommendations. Are there any volunteers to serve on this sub-grant committee?
I'd be happy
I'm
to
hap-
serve.
I'm happy to be on the committee.
Okay, Rich?
I will not be here for November. I don't know what the timing of this committee would be.
I think we should probably meet, that committee I think should meet in the next 2 weeks. And so whatever recommendations we can make in advance of that meeting and in the same time approve those at the next meeting, I think would be very helpful to Lisa, just so we don't put her on a tight deadline.
Yeah.
And
So I'll
obviously,
bow out. I won't be back in town until December.
okay, yeah, anyone else?
I'd be happy to serve on the committee.
I think I would as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested, yes.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay,
Oh dear, Sarah.
Next time, ask who's not going to be available. Does anybody not want to contribute? Oh, I guess that would be me.
okay.
Not that I don't want to, but I'm happy if you want to pull me in, I'm happy, but.
Okay, so we have 4 volunteers. So I need to entertain a motion to appoint Mike, myself, Jim, and who did I skip? Millie.
Please.
All
And
4
Rich.
of us.
And
to-
Rich.
And
And
Rich.
Rich.
Oh, Rich. I lost you there, Rich. Sorry.
As long as
Okay,
as
so-
it's after I return on the 1st of November.
Okay, so I would say if we could make, set up a meeting, but first, I think we have to have a motion to appoint those 5 individuals to that committee. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to appoint those 5 individuals to that committee.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And roll call. Jim?
Lauren,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim, yes, Millie?
Yes.
Okay, and I would say that we should set up something within the next 2 weeks. Either meet at the museum or something would be, I think, okay. Is anybody, I'm thinking, just off the top of my head, if we were to go 2 weeks from today, the 8th, say at 4 PM at the museum, does that work with everybody?
Let's see, that would be, you said the 8th at 4
The
p.m.?
8th at 4 PM, same time we meet here.
4 p.m. would work for me. I have a ambassador meeting at 5.
Okay. Does that sound good for everybody?
Works for me.
Millie, good? Jim, that look good for you? Okay, so we'll have that meeting on the 8th at 4 PM at the museum. And now we'll move on to the subcommittee updates. Do we have any updates from the Public Outreach Committee?
We did not meet prior to this meeting. However, city staff had met with Sarah Capel, the tax credit specialist, last Friday. We gave her a tour of downtown, looking at various different buildings and talking to her about possibly coming down here early part of 2024 to do in-person workshop with the commission, as well as opening it up to the public to learn more about the benefits of the tax credit program through the SHPO office. So if that's something you're interested in having us organize, we can certainly work with her on setting up a time to do that.
And we'll each individually let you know, I think. I think I'm interested in it, but we'll make sure that everyone lets Lisa know. How about the historic context, or is anything else on public outreach? Historic context?
So Erin has completed the work for all of, inventory of all of our plans, plat maps of subdivisions and additions within city limits. It's quite impressive. And I'm still working on developing that interactive map and plotting those out, how they had, in some cases, not even been filed. So it's interesting, very interesting. It's going to be a process, though, before we can get that completed.
And anything else in historic context? How about the review committee?
We have not received any applications for certificate of alteration currently. And I'm not aware of any potential ones.
Okay.
One thing I might add on historic context, in reviewing some of the work that's being done now, a lot of the historic preservation consultants are referencing mapping extensively and the use of digital maps as well. So one thing we might make sure we do is set the stage with the work you're doing now so that that can be digitized as we go forward.
So one of the aspects of the inventory that we've been doing on the plats was taking photographs, digital photographs of all of them. Some of them are in bad shape. We can't really scan them very easily. So the best way to do it is taking decent digital photographs. And we'll be getting those on our collections database.
Do we even know of anyone that has a large-scale flatbed scanner?
Not locally, that I'm aware of. Maybe the high school?
No,
No, okay.
no.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a large flatbed scanner within Canyon City.
No, and it wouldn't be, I was thinking the Springs probably would be.
Mhm. Yeah, Springs is probably the closest. We've taken things up to Denver.
I do that in the Springs too, but they're usually scanned, they're rotary scanned, they're not flatbed scanned, and so if you've got really fragile documents, they'd have to be flatbed scanned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, some of them are pretty fragile.
Anything additional on any of the committees? And if not, we'll open it up to any public comments or general announcements.
I have a couple announcements of upcoming training opportunities. The next CLG webinar will be historical context on Wednesday, December 6th at noon, and you can register for that via the CLG portal. The one in November is relating to the Compass database, which staff is aware of. The one that would be most of interest to you would probably be the historical context one in December.
That's the December 6th.
Yes, yep.
I'm wondering, Lisa, because I think that a lot of us on the commission would benefit considerably by taking part in these webinars, and we're not being very diligent about that. So if there's a way we could be emailed in advance of those, or a reminder of some sort, just something that would help us remember to sit down and sign up and spend a little time
Certainly I can
on
do
that,
that.
I appreciate it.
Yep. They also record them too, so it takes them a little while to get those on their CLG training portal to view whenever you want. But they do that
Okay.
as well. So you can look through their archives of,
I believe I signed up at some point for reminders, because I do get emails for
Oh, do you?
webinars.
Through the
It
CLG?
would have been a year or two ago. But I think through their system, you can sign up and get those reminders. I think.
Okay, anything else?
Also want to remind the commission of our board recognition dinner that's coming up on December 7th. And you will be receiving invitations for that as well.
Same place as previous years?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may on that, Lisa, the city really appreciates the hard work that each of the commissions and committees do, including the Historic Preservation Commission, and we love to take an evening to celebrate you and to celebrate your efforts to make Canyon City a little bit better through historic preservation. So just thank you for what you do, and if you're able to come, we would love to spend that evening honoring you and celebrating you.
Thank you. We do appreciate it. It is a nice gathering, so if everybody takes a minute to show up, it's a lot of fun. Thanks again, Amy. And if there's any other business?
I also want to let you know of the Saving Places Conference. It's going to be January 31st through February 2nd in Boulder again. Just to save your date if you're interested. And that's through the Colorado Historic Preservation, Inc. And we are, as a commission, a member of that.
Is it, I guess the information's on the website?
Yes.
Okay, and location and everything
Yes.
has already been
Yep.
decided? Okay. And I did attend that last year, and it was very, very interesting. Lots of great input, lots of good feedback from experts in the field, and all kinds of interesting topics that are brought up, and lots of great tools that help us do our job a little bit better. So I recommend anybody who has the time and wants to make the effort, that it's definitely worth the trip. If you have another
And the
item?
last one is, of course, our next meeting set for December 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving, so.
November?
November.
November.
Yeah, 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving. So if you wanted to reschedule, we could certainly do that. We could set up a special meeting if you wanted to meet in regards to the sub-grant.
I think we should. I don't know if we can move it a week earlier. Would that be appropriate?
I can look on the calendar and see if that's
If we
doable.
could, maybe we
Yep.
move it to the third week of November, if that works for folks, that way we can at least get the information to Lisa, and she can wrap up the sub-grant application in time. So let's tentatively set it for the 15th if the council chamber is open, and if not, we'll regroup at that point.
Yep, I'll let you know.
Okay? Does that sound okay with everyone? Okay, Lisa, anything else? Okay, anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I have one item.
Okay,
I sent an email out last night about Mr. Ed's, just happened to drive by it and saw the chain link fence around it, and was wondering if they're gonna be doing some work that would change it. I have no idea what the fence is there. Somebody wrote back and said they're maybe just keeping people out of a vacant property, but I was just curious along those lines, if there are buildings in town that we think are interesting and important, but for some reason they're being renovated and they sort of got by the commission, I don't know if that's possible, or if it is possible, how can you have any impact on trying to preserve something at that point, that if construction really was underway on something?
So Speaking
There's-
about Mr. Eds in particular, following up on your email, I did reach out to the city administrator to see if they have filed their building plans yet, which they have not. He reiterated that the larger fence was mostly due to trying to prevent or mitigate ongoing vagrancy issues, but that the city hasn't yet received what the actual plans might be for any renovations to that building. And I'm sorry, Lester, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was just going to comment that when plans are submitted for review and permit to the city, inside the city limits, there's a checklist of agencies that it gets transmitted to, and Lisa's one of those agencies if it falls inside our historic boundaries. So if it's outside a historic boundary like Main Street, if it falls into one of the places we haven't surveyed yet and designated, then it would skip that piece of the radar.
Okay, thank you.
I think, though, that raises a really interesting question about the sub-grant, and if one of the action items coming out of that was everywhere that we have surveyed now should go, Lisa and the HPC should be part of the review process. I think that could be a very tangible way that this survey could immediately have an impact in terms of our historic preservation capabilities.
Well, I think if Lisa wants to review every permit application that crosses the city's desk, she's welcome to. She can come in and volunteer for that at any time. But I think it's a good suggestion.
I think it's worth more discussion too, because I certainly think that a lot of historic structures would fall out of that. And at least, honestly, I think that our role here isn't to stifle somebody from coming in and investing in our community. It's more to encourage them to remember the historic significance of a piece of property. And so even just having a discussion with us or having to go through that review, and I think it hopefully plants the seed in their minds to maybe reconsider, completely destroying the facade of a great old building. So I think that we should at least have some more discussion on that very topic to see what we can do without overwhelming Lisa and staff on that very topic. But I think it's important because there are a lot of great structures that are not in downtown.
I would like to make one comment on that. As being an architect, I do this. So this is part of my everyday work. So there's two different ways that Lisa could become involved in a project. Certainly the review right before permitting process, but that's at the very end of all of the work I do. And so the months I spent, weeks and months I spent putting together documents, then they finally get to her, and I may have already missed something. So if we're talking about something that is really forward-looking in terms of it's not a part of a designated district or boundary, but it may still have some significance. There's also a process that we use that is the city promotes, and that's a pre-planning meeting process where someone like myself and the owner would come in and say, this is what we intend to do. Who do we need to pay attention to? And so and again, from my perspective, it's helpful. Well, the very first thing I have to do is figure out all of the hurdles I have. And so one of the things I do as a professional is reach out to historic preservation first and say, is this on anybody's list? And so if there's already something in our system that kicks that out, a pre-planning meeting where Lisa could become involved, or at least something shoots across her inbox that says, do you want to be involved? I think it would be important too. So as we do look at boundaries of neighborhoods and areas, I think that would be an important consideration. So I think it's a valid thing to continue to talk about because it helps professionals who really use that information and need that information right away.
And if it's not in front of you, it sometimes, or many times, is not even considered.
I
So,
hate
yeah.
to see it at the very end.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
For the Mr. Ed's building, it's not currently in any specific historic district, it's not designated. Would it be okay to reach out to the owner of that building? Now may be a good time before they're deep into that process and say, hey, look, this has historic significance. If, give them an application, if you want to apply to be designated, it could potentially open up tax benefits for your project, and save you money in the long term on the project itself. Would that be something that we could do?
You certainly can. We've highlighted that building a couple years ago on sort of a historic preservation spotlight when it turned 50 years old. We posted it on Facebook with historic photographs, hoping that we would get some response in regards to an owner being interested in getting it listed. Unfortunately, it has changed owners, so it's a matter of trying to reach out to the current one and see if they are still interested in that possibility for tax credits especially.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Might
the
give
other
them some
aspect,
incentive.
excuse me. The other aspect that reaching out to owners, property owners of historic buildings, I've caught occasionally on the front end when they come into the museum looking for more information about their historic property, wanting to learn more about the building, the individuals who have lived there. If it catches my radar then, I let them know the significance and tell them that their property could be eligible if that isn't already listed. But that's really if they only come in to the museum.
And Mr. Eds is kind of from the new time period that is now becoming historic. It's kind of, some of that architecture is what a lot of History Colorado and this push was fighting against. But now it's met that threshold, which I think is an interesting time.
You mean the 70s?
Yeah, exactly, to see. And that building, it's
It's
cool.
very unique.
It's very unique, and there's some like that I don't envision a lot of them coming into the History Center to look for history on it. So that might be something where we need to be a little more proactive and.
Yeah, not yet,
Yeah.
not too many. They're usually the older buildings, of course. But there is there are a couple that are pretty significant that date to the 70s, late 60s, early 70s that are now eligible.
Anything else? Okay, so we will meet again on November 15th if it is open, and Lisa will let us know if it does not work. Otherwise, the CLG subgrant committee will meet on the 8th, and then we'll have our regular meeting the following week. Anything else before we adjourn? All right, thank you, everyone, and we are adjourned.